The scope's reticle pulsed gently over the frozen alien's forehead, though the creature never saw it. He was too busy monologuing into his wrist calm, bragging about his confirmed kill count and the fragility of Earth's defenses. His last words were, "Primitive species, no wonder," before the bullet kissed his skull with such elegance that the rest of the sentence never existed. 3,000 meters away, a figure in a snow-covered ghillie suit whispered, "Didn't your mother teach you not to trash talk before checking the tree line?" That was the first of many bodies to vanish into Sector Zulu. That was when the galaxy learned Earth didn't fall. Earth went silent. There's a difference. High above the atmosphere, aboard the command vessel Obsidian Verdict, 5 alien generals circled the holographic projection of the quarantined Earth zone. It spun slowly, locked onto a flashing red sector marked Zulu 13. None of them looked impressed. General Thorne snorted through his tusks and slammed a clawed hand onto the table. "Enough! Send him down! Varex will clear that nest in hours." The others murmured approval. Varex, the genetically perfected sharpshooter of the Galactic Dominion, had ended 3 planetary rebellions with just a rifle and time. 4 eyes, each calibrated for different spectrums. A living weapon. If he couldn't flush the humans out, they weren't there. Adjutant Hisri, a smaller, lizard-like tactician with a knack for numbers, looked uncertain. "Respectfully, Zulu 13 has, how do you say, bad juju. Every recon team reports static. Signals vanish. There's something wrong with that patch of Earth." Thorne waved him off. "Ghost stories. They abandoned Earth centuries ago. All that's left is dust and bones." "Then why send Varex?" Hisri countered, voice trembling. "Because ghosts don't kill 17 elite scouts in silence." Within the hour, Varex was prepped. He said nothing during his insertion briefing. He didn't need to. His rifle, a semi-sentient scope-linked railgun named Whisper, calibrated itself mid-flight. The pod hurtled towards Sector Zulu 13 like a vengeful comet. Impact was a soft thump into snow. He stepped out. Everything was wrong. No wind. No birds. Even the trees stood too still, like they were waiting for something. His HUD began flickering. Static crawled across his scope. He ignored it. Earth tech was always twitchy. He had a job: locate, isolate, and eliminate any trace of human insurgents. The terrain was mostly pine forests riddled with rusted relics of ancient warfare, burnout tanks, shredded helicopters, the skeletal remains of bunkers long since sealed. Whisper clicked. "Visual feed degraded. Recommend uplink recalibration." It droned. Varex sighed. "Spare me the diagnostics. Eyes on. Move forward." He slid silently through the snow, like a phantom. Tracks revealed nothing. Even his own were swallowed too fast by fresh flurries. That's when he found the first scout. Half frozen, upright, eyes open, staring blankly ahead. No visible wounds. Just placed there. Mouth parted like he died mid-scream. Varex's heart rate spiked. He tapped his comms. "Command, I've got visual on." Static. Then a crackle. Then a voice, in human English. "If you can see us, you're already dead." Varex spun. Nothing. Whisper went dark. His HUD scrambled. His secondary eyes blinked in sequence, trying to reboot. Footsteps. Behind him. He fired. Missed. He never missed. Before he could line up a second shot, his rifle jammed. Not just a jam, internal lockout. Whisper refused to respond. Then he felt it. A breath on his neck. A whisper, not from his rifle, but from the shadows. "Tag. You're it." Pain exploded behind his eyes. The world flipped. He was upside down, hanging from a tree like meat. When Varex came to, he didn't scream. Trained soldiers don't scream. But he did bleed. His legs had been bound with earth netting, ancient stuff, yes, but woven tight with synthetic steel and coated in snow to camouflage perfectly. His wrists were tied in a figure-8 grip behind his back. Whisper was nowhere in sight. System error. The AI murmured from somewhere deep in his skull implant. Subject's orientation compromised. Mission status, failed with dishonor. Then came laughter. Human. Calm. Crisp. Somewhere between amused and predatory. You aliens always start the same, the voice said, drawing closer. You drop your best guy in the nest. And he doesn't make it through the first night. Varex craned his neck. The man approaching wore an old-world sniper suit, patched with bits of old Earth military and animal hide. His face was painted in matte black streaks. His eyes, though, those were unnatural. Calm. Cold. Focused like lasers without light. Designation? Varex growled. The man squatted in front of him. We had names once. Doesn't matter now. You can call me Juno. Most do. Usually right before they stop breathing. Varex surged forward. The ropes held. Impressive drop, though, Juno said, inspecting his gear. Whisper, huh? Seen one of these up close once. Last guy who brought one here didn't walk out either. You are marked for execution by the Dominion, Varex hissed. Juno chuckled. And yet I'm still here. Weird, right? He rose and tapped a small headset. Base, this is Nest Lead. Got another one. Same pattern. Cocky. Dropped solo. Rifle's a keeper, though. A female voice replied through the snow static. Copy that, Lead. Bet you 5 bullets he cracks before midnight. Juno grinned. Too easy. He's already twitchy. Varex seethed, but behind the anger was confusion. These weren't scavengers or war relics. These humans were organized. Trained. Operating under radio silence, and using ghost tech that defied Dominion sensors. Every file he read said Earth was lost. That its defenders had scattered. But they hadn't scattered. They'd nested. Back on the Obsidian Verdict, General Thorne paced. No comms from Varex in over 6 hours. Adjutant Hisri looked pale. Shall I ready Recon Unit 7? Thorne slammed a fist on the console. No. Ready all of them. He leaned over the holomap, narrowing his eyes on Zulu 13. Whatever's down there, I want it erased. Burn the entire quadrant. Hisri hesitated. Even if it means waking the nest? Thorne bared his teeth. There is no nest. Just bones. Far below, in a tree laced with snow and silence, Juno whispered into Varex's ear. You know what the real joke is? You aliens think we stayed to fight a war. We didn't. We stayed because this is our home. And we don't like visitors. The snow began to fall heavier. The scopes in the shadows all clicked at once. General Thorne's talons tapped restlessly against the edge of the holodable, his tusks grinding in frustration as the seconds dragged on without a single signal from Varex. Across from him, Adjutant Hisri's tail flicked nervously, glancing between the glowing red dot representing Sector Zulu 13 and the silent audio feeds from the surface. 6 hours of silence. 6 hours without even the courtesy of a death scream. Thorne barked an order, his voice booming through the command deck like a detonated plasma shell. Deploy Recon Unit 7. Full loadout. I want that sector flushed like a disease. Anything breathing, burn it. Hisri hesitated. It wasn't protocol to override a solo-op sniper with a full recon deployment, but then again, nothing about Earth had followed protocol since they'd returned to it. He tapped the command screen and relayed orders to the drop hangar. Within minutes, the elite squadron of alien commandos, 12 units strong, armed with gravity boots, pulse rifles, chameleon cloaks, and sensor drones, stood ready inside their insertion pods. Their commander, Vrexel, a stocky brute with a metallic jaw and a hatred for dirt planets, barked out one last chuckle before launch. Bet he tripped and shot himself. Sharpshooters. Always overrated. When the pods streaked through Earth's atmosphere, they lit up the winter sky like falling stars. The snowstorm in Sector Zulu 13 didn't care. It welcomed them like it had the rest. When the recon units touched down, they landed in a scattered pattern across the sector perimeter, standard Dominion spread. Eyes everywhere. Signals strong. Weapons hot. That lasted less than a minute. Private Hexrel, the youngest of the squad, activated his drone. It lifted into the air, scanned for hostiles, and returned static. No pings. Just white noise. A patch of trees appeared blurred. Like the drone couldn't decide if it was seeing movement or not. Hexrel frowned and turned to call it in, but his voice was never heard. His body dropped silently. One clean entry wound through the base of the neck, no exit. 20 feet away, Sergeant Coran saw something odd in the snow. A shoe. Human. Fresh. He motioned to two of his men and moved in formation. No words. Just signs. Standard drill. The snow crunched beneath their boots, too loudly, too carelessly. They reached the tree line. The shoe was placed on a rock. Empty. Waiting. Coran leaned forward to inspect it. Then the explosion hit. Not a bomb. Not even tech. Just pressure, a concussion round hidden beneath snow. Not lethal, but enough to scatter their senses. Coran's vision blurred. His calm shorted. As his hearing came back, the sound he registered wasn't gunfire or screams, it was laughter. Human, low, satisfied, and close. 3 more recon members vanished within the next 90 seconds. From orbit, the command center watched through helmet cams, until the feeds flickered, one by one, with the same maddening signal loss, static, a blur of trees, and just before blackout, a sharp, shrill click. Like a scope being cocked. Thorne's expression tightened. He leaned over the holodeble again and growled at his Sri. What the hell is going on down there? His Sri didn't answer right away. He was running diagnostics on the blackout patterns. Something clicked in his mind as he overlaid data from prior scout teams. The times. The distances. The silence. Each squad had failed to last more than 10 minutes once inside Zulu 13. That wasn't random. That was orchestration. A controlled perimeter. A kill zone. He turned slowly. Sir, we're not dealing with scavengers. We're walking into a nest. And they'd been practicing. Thorne hissed and slammed his fist down again. I want visuals. Launch long-range surveillance from the northern hemisphere. Give me eyes on that forest. The surveillance drone launched high above Earth's surface, descending over the snowy terrain in a wide arc. At first, it picked up nothing. Just endless white. Trees. Wreckage. Then it hit a patch that didn't match thermal expectations. A ridge that looked too cold. Upon closer inspection, the heat map revealed a rough shape, long, slender, mounted. A barrel? The drone zoomed in. It was a rifle. Buried. Covered. Aged. But active. And it wasn't alone. The image began to expand, and one by one, more shapes appeared, camouflaged outlines blending into nature itself. Not 10, not 20. Dozens. Maybe more. Human snipers in positions stretching back through the forest. Some in trees. Some half frozen into old bunker walls. Some under broken cars. Hisri's blood chilled. They didn't just hold ground. They became it. Back in Zulu 13, Vrexel ordered the remaining team to retreat and regroup, but only 5 responded. The others were already dead or unreachable. That's when the comms crackled again, not from his men, but from an open frequency. Human voice. Female. You're walking in a circle, darling. We call it the ring. You're in the middle. That's where the good shots happen. Vrexel's blood turned to fire. He barked out a challenge, spinning in place, firing wildly into the trees. Another voice answered. Missed. Then another. Still missed. Then another behind him. Try again. The last voice came from under his feet. He looked down just in time to see the snow puff and a bullet punch through his thigh. He collapsed, screaming. As he tried to crawl, scopes flickered in the mist. He screamed into his comm. They're everywhere. They're ghosts. This isn't recon, this is a trap. Back on the command deck, Thorne watched the last remaining live feed from Vrexel's helmet. It jerked upward violently, then settled at a strange angle. The last image it captured was of a human standing on a rock, silhouetted against the snowstorm. He wore a sniper's hood. His face was scarred but calm. One eye was gone, replaced by an ancient Terran optic. He looked directly at the camera and gave a lazy two-finger salute. Then the feed went black. A few seconds later, the Dominion command channels were hijacked. A clear, calm voice, Juno again, broadcast across their secured network. "This is Earth's sniper nest. We've acquired your elite. And your toys. Send more. We could use the practice." Silence returned. Static reclaimed the channels. Thorne stood still for a long time. His three swallowed hard. "Sir, what do we do?" Thorne didn't answer. He simply turned away from the holodeble and muttered under his breath. "We wake the machine. We're not fighting men. We're fighting memories. And they remember how to shoot." The silence inside the Dominion war room was thicker than armor plating. Even the hum of the systems seemed to hush itself as the weight of failure sank into every corner of the command deck. General Thorne stared at the static screen like it had personally betrayed him, his tusks clenched tight, a vein twitching above his left eye. His three dared not speak. He had never seen Thorne still for this long. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something worse, realization. A growing, cold understanding that they weren't dealing with remnants of an old species but with something far more dangerous. Survivors with patience. Snipers with nothing left to lose. Hunters who had outlived every war because they stopped fighting and started becoming the battlefield itself. Finally, Thorne's voice broke through, low and gravelly. "Ready, Rook." "Now." His three blinked. He hadn't heard that name in cycles. Rook was not a soldier. He was an experiment. A hybrid of biological matter and machine, forged specifically for planetary lockdowns and resistance termination. His spine was reinforced with magnetized armor, his limbs capable of absorbing recoil from anti-tank rounds, and his ocular systems could scan through 12 spectrums simultaneously. Rook was designed for one thing: eradication. The fact that Thorne was summoning him meant the situation had gone from complicated to existential. As the launch protocols were initiated, a heavy containment door opened in the lower hold. Fog rolled out. Inside, sitting on a reinforced bench like a loaded weapon waiting for permission, Rook lifted his head. He spoke only once, his voice crackling like broken radio. "How many?" His re-answered from the comms, trying to keep his voice neutral. "Unknown. Possibly dozens. Possibly more." Rook stood towering, plates shifting as if the machine inside him was waking up with him. "Then they'll keep." He was launched within the hour, his drop pod reinforced with kinetic buffers and sonic dampeners. The Dominion wasn't taking any chances. As Rook hurtled toward Earth's surface, the pod began broadcasting a warning on all frequencies, a psychological warfare tactic meant to shake any hidden enemies. It looped one phrase in multiple Earth languages. "Target acquired. You have 30 seconds to surrender or be buried." The pod landed with a seismic thud that knocked birds from nearby trees. Snow exploded outward. Silence fell again. Rook emerged. He scanned. His vision peeled back layers of terrain. Rocks, dirt, heat signatures. The forest was cold but not empty. Shapes flickered. Hints of movement. Camouflage meant to fool everything except someone like him. He smiled. Clever little corpses. He walked slowly at first, absorbing every data point the terrain had to offer. Broken branches. Bullet fragments. Scorch marks from old weapons. It was like moving through a graveyard of forgotten wars. But it didn't take long for the game to begin. The first shot rang out, a warning. It pinged harmlessly off his shoulder plate, a .308 round. Antique. Human. Nostalgic even. Rook laughed and turned in that direction. Amateurs. He launched a micro-drone and ordered it to track the sniper's heat. It flew for 4 seconds before vanishing. Not destroyed. Not shot down. Just gone. He frowned. Cute trick. He activated thermal and caught a blur moving between trees. He snapped up his rifle, fired. Missed. He adjusted and fired again. Still missed. The figure moved too fast. No, not fast. Efficient. It wasn't running, it was baiting. The forest began to tighten around him, not physically but tactically. Trees aligned strangely, creating false angles. Sound echoed wrong. He realized they'd constructed this terrain like a funnel. His funnel. They were controlling his options, dictating where he could step, where he could turn. He tried to pull back. A mine went off behind him. Not enough to kill him. Just enough to slow him. As the snow settled, he heard it again. That laughter. Not mocking. Joyful. Familiar. We've seen your type before, Metal Man. Rook's head jerked. Voice pattern matched the feed from earlier. Juno. You think armor keeps you safe? You ever hear a bullet laugh? Another shot cracked through the trees. This one struck a weak point in Rook's right knee. Not damaging, but precise. The kind of shot that made a machine recalibrate its entire walking protocol. He turned, rage boiling. He fired wildly, lighting up the tree line, splintering ancient trunks, dropping a tree with a single charged burst. Another voice called out. Missed again. That's 3. Rook activated his area scan. A wide pulse echoed through the snow. 30 heat blips. Then 20. Then 12. Then nothing. All gone. Decoys. Fake signatures mimicking life signs. These weren't just snipers. These were tacticians. Artists. He growled and activated self-sustained mode. No more drones. No more scans. Just instinct. He pushed forward, forcing the nest into reaction. He began spraying the area with flares, smoke, sonic bursts. Anything to draw them out. It worked. A figure moved just a second too long. Rook pivoted and fired. He caught something. A scream. Got you. But as he approached the spot, he saw blood. Real blood. Human. Then he saw the tag. Private Rowan. Dominion Recon. They'd used his own dead to bait him. Behind him, a voice whispered. You're not even the apex here. The shot hit him in the back of the neck, the only unshielded spot, designed for cooling. Sparks flew. His system staggered. He dropped to one knee. Another shot hit his left optic. Then another to the base of his spine. His AI screamed internally. Shutdown imminent. As he crawled, he saw them. 3 snipers, walking toward him like ghosts. One old, one younger, one barely more than a teen. All human. All smiling. The youngest saluted him. Thanks for the gear. Then blackness. Back in orbit, Thorne stared at the recovered footage. His jaw was slack. They didn't just kill Rook. They stripped him, studied him, and sent back the footage of it happening. A warning. A message. Then the command ship's speakers crackled. You keep sending toys, we'll keep breaking them. You want to see what we've really got buried in the snow? Then come down. Thorne staggered back. His Sri turned pale again. They're not holding the nest, sir. They are the nest. The transport ship that descended from the Dominion flagship was shaped like a dagger, long, sharp, and filled with every ounce of arrogance its creators could pack into armor. This wasn't a scouting vessel or a recon craft. This was a statement. The 3 highest-ranking generals aboard the Obsidian Verdict had abandoned their throne in orbit to personally step foot on Earth's surface, not out of necessity, but pride. Thorne led them, flanked by Generals Croth and Millis, each armored in ceremonial plating, each believing the last few days of embarrassment would be undone by a single act of dominance. Behind them, a platoon of elite guards marched with synchronized precision, silent as the snow that met them on the ground. The air was bitter, still humming with cold, but not just from the atmosphere. Something beneath the surface seemed to hum with memory. As they entered the forest of Zulu 13, even the guards began to glance at the trees, unsure why they felt like every trunk was staring back. The snow crunched underfoot with too much clarity, as if even sound itself refused to echo here without permission. Thorne pressed forward, jaw set. He wasn't afraid. He didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in results, and he was about to extract them. But the deeper they moved into the terrain, the less confident Croth became. He scanned the environment, noting that there were no signs of recent life. No wildlife. No birds. No movement in the branches. Just silence. It wasn't natural. It wasn't even tactical. It was deliberate. Every step they took felt rehearsed, guided, even when no path existed. It didn't feel like they were searching the forest, it felt like they were being led. Millis stopped and looked down at a small stone embedded in the snow. She brushed it off and froze. Etched into it, rough and worn by time, was a name. Not an alien name. A human one. Below it, the letters USMC. She looked up slowly, then to her left. Another stone. Another name. Army. Further down, a rusted dog tag hung from a low-hanging branch, still swaying gently, though there was no wind. They've marked the entire forest, she whispered. Thorne ignored it. Press on. But as they moved forward, the pattern became undeniable. Markers everywhere. Not graves. Not random artifacts. Memorials. These weren't just remnants of soldiers. They were soldiers who had chosen to die right where they stood. Some had turned into snipers, some into traps, and some simply became the landscape. The trees were lined with bullet holes that told stories, the rocks stained with old oil and ancient blood. It wasn't a battlefield. It was a monument of wrath. The platoon stopped when the ridge opened up. What lay before them was a natural valley, ringed with trees and covered in unbroken snow. At its center stood a strange structure, half bunker, half frozen statue, with a long antenna rising from its top. Around it, dozens of crude structures had been camouflaged into the ground. Thorne narrowed his eyes. Nest? No one answered. Croth took a step forward. Then another. Still nothing. He waved the troops on. Spread. Search. Sweep pattern delta. The platoon moved quickly, training their weapons on every shadow, watching every tree. Then the first shot hit. A guard dropped instantly, hit between the eyes. The second shot came half a second later, striking another in the thigh, spinning him in the air before he collapsed, screaming. The group scattered, diving for cover, scanning wildly. Thorne growled and shouted orders, but the echo of his voice was met with more gunfire. Precise. Rhythmic. Deliberate. He looked up to see scopes blinking in the tree-line like fireflies. 1, 2, 5, 10. Too many. We're in the kill box, Millis said, her voice thin. Then came the voice. Welcome to the ring, gentlemen. It echoed from nowhere and everywhere at once. The snow cracked beneath the feet of invisible figures. From behind half-buried tanks, from the tops of trees, from foxholes long abandoned but recently used, the snipers emerged, not all at once, but in flickers, like ghosts revealing themselves to their prey. Thorne shouted. Fall back! But they couldn't. Behind them, more shapes appeared. Humans, old and young, men and women, all in mismatched gear, some wearing uniforms from wars that had ended centuries ago, others covered in gear made from Dominion scraps. Some even wore parts of Rook's armor. They had repurposed it. Upgraded it. Personalized it. Juno stepped forward from the center of the field, hands behind his back, head tilted just slightly. He looked up at the generals as if they were merely tourists lost in a museum they didn't understand. You finally came down. Good. We were getting bored. Thorne raised his weapon. You're surrounded, human. This is your end. Juno shrugged. Could be. Or it could be yours. He whistled once. A short, crisp sound. Behind Thorne, the antenna on the bunker flared to life, sending a pulse through the snow. The Dominion weapons jammed. All of them. Their sensors shut down. HUDs flickered. EMP, Millis muttered. Localized. No, Juno replied, upgraded. Made from your stuff. Thorne lunged forward, but Juno moved faster. In one fluid motion, he rolled behind a snowbank as the entire valley lit up with coordinated sniper fire. One after another, Dominion soldiers fell. Precise. Efficient. Not a single shot wasted. Croth was hit in the leg, then the arm. He screamed for help, but no one moved. He looked up to see a teenager no older than 17, barely armored, holding a bolt-action rifle aimed at his chest. The last thing Croth heard was the boy softly say, "This one's for my grandpa." Thorne and Millis ran. Not fought, ran. Through the trees. Through the snow. Through the silence that mocked them with every breath. But it was no good. The path was already chosen for them. Every escape led back to the ring. Every direction funneled them inward. The nest wasn't chasing them. It was hurting them. In the end, only Thorne remained. Millis had taken a round through the neck, crumpling like paper. He stood in the middle of the ridge, breath ragged, weapon gone, eyes darting at every flicker in the tree line. Juno appeared again, closer now. "Calm. You aliens came here thinking we were broken. That we forgot how to fight. That we'd run or hide or beg. But you forgot what Earth does best. It adapts." Thorne growled, blood dripping from a gash in his side. "You're just men." Juno smiled, stepping closer. "Not just men. We're the reminder." The last thing Thorne saw was 1,000 blinking scopes lighting up across the trees, like stars descending all at once. Then silence. Above the sector, Dominion ships turned slowly in orbit, retreating without further orders. On their sensors, Earth went dark once more. Static. No signals. No heat. No bodies. Just the cold. But far below, in the heart of Zula 13, the snipers began to reset their positions, disappearing into the trees again, rifles reloaded, sights cleaned, nothing left behind but fresh snow and old names etched in stone. The nest had won. Again. And it waited. 3 days passed, and the Dominion command ships remained in orbit, holding position just beyond the gravity well of Earth, unwilling to descend, too proud to retreat. Inside the cold halls of the Obsidian Verdict, no one spoke Thorne's name. His command deck had been locked down, his quarters sealed. The footage of his final moments was encrypted, buried in deep protocol, labeled classified by those who had never stepped foot on the planet. And yet, among the crew, whispers moved like fire. Of blinking scopes in the dark. Of an entire platoon erased without a trace. Of humans not just surviving, but thriving, in the ruins they were meant to die in. Within the High Council's chamber aboard the Dominion flagship, political generals debated what to do next. Some demanded orbital strikes. Glass the zone. Wipe out Zula 13 and turn it into ash. Others warned against provoking more retaliation. Earth was insignificant strategically, but not anymore. Now it was a symbol. A wound. A place where Dominion pride had gone to die, over and over again. But as the debates raged, as the words echoed through the hollow metallic halls of command, something else unfolded silently below, in the frozen wild. It began with a signal. Small. Purposefully faint. A weak, rhythmic pulse that barely scratched the upper atmosphere. The Dominion systems flagged it immediately but dismissed it as residual echo from earlier transmissions. A human beacon buried beneath rubble. A glitch. But it wasn't a glitch. Deep inside the ruins of an old missile silo, hidden beneath 40 feet of concrete, ice, and reinforced earth pride, a figure sat in darkness. She hadn't spoken in years. She hadn't needed to. Her body, cryo-scarred and slowed by decades of suspended animation, moved like machinery waking up after a long war nap. She pulled the tube from her arm, gritted her teeth, and slid off the cryobed. Her breath misted in the air, and she flexed her fingers, each one marked by burns, scars, and old tactical ink. The tattoo on her forearm had faded, but the numbers remained clear. 0-3-2 Delta. Below it, a single phrase barely legible. One shot. One silence. Her name was Callan. She had been one of the first to be buried deep beneath Zulu 13, back when it was still a contingency plan. Before the world went quiet. Before the final orders were given. Before they realized that Earth wouldn't win this war by force, but by patience. Her radio buzzed with a single word. Awake? She responded without hesitation. Always. Juno's voice came through next, low and calm. Time for you to say hello, Commander. She didn't smile, but her eyes glinted in the dark. She opened the weapons locker, revealing her rifle, a monster of a thing, too large for most to carry, built by hand, reinforced with Dominion alloys and old-world steel. She slung it over her back and began the long climb upward. Outside the silo, the storm had cleared. The trees stood as they always did, watching, waiting. Juno met her at the ridge. He looked older, but sharper now, like the years had sharpened him into something more than human. We weren't sure you'd still be ticking, he said. She adjusted the scope on her rifle. Didn't bury me that deep. They walked in silence, past the remnants of old machines, the crushed helmet of a Dominion elite trooper half frozen in the ice, his expression still locked in panic. Around them, the nest had grown. More humans had returned, ones who had gone underground, ones who had scattered across mountain ranges, waiting for the signal. They returned now with fire in their blood and snow on their shoulders. Above them, the Dominion ships began to move again. This time, they weren't descending. They were deploying. Orbital insertion pods. Hundreds of them. Spreading like black seeds across the atmosphere, streaking through clouds, screaming toward the surface. They weren't just coming for the nest now. They were coming for the whole planet. Juno looked up, unbothered. They always overcorrect, he muttered. Callan knelt beside a ridge and began adjusting a small metal case. Inside was a targeting module linked to old Earth defense satellites. Long deactivated. Or so the Dominion thought. She flicked 3 switches. The sky hummed. When they come down, she said, we break their legs before they hit the ground. Elsewhere across the world, similar modules came online. Old satellites blinked awake. Some failed. Most didn't. And one by one, across every continent, every hidden valley, every buried base, Earth's old defense systems stirred from their graves. It wasn't a full retaliation. It wasn't even a counterattack. It was something worse. A welcome. The pods began to drop faster now. Hundreds turning to thousands. The Dominion planned to overwhelm. To flood. But the first wave never made it to the ground. Midway through descent, several pods exploded midair, struck by rail cannons mounted to hidden cliff faces. Others were intercepted by drones that should have been too ancient to fly. And those that did land found themselves in zones mined with traps older than the Dominion's existence. One pod landed clean. 6 elite troops emerged. Before they could orient, a sniper round struck the center unit. Another dropped the one next to him. The rest scattered. A voice crackled into their ears. Your briefing told you Earth was primitive. That's cute. One by one, the snipers activated. In orbit, Dominion Command watched their forces disappear. Not in battle. Not in glorious combat. They simply stopped transmitting. Units blinked off the board like lights being switched off in the dark. No screams. No pleas. Just quiet. Inside the nest, Juno stood before a wall of names. Carved by hand. Hundreds of them. Some alive. Some long dead. All remembered. He turned to Callan. They'll keep coming. She nodded. And we'll keep teaching. That night, Earth glowed again, not from destruction, but from coordinated attacks. Brief, surgical, impossibly accurate. Not war. Justice. Dominion scouts that survived spoke of the eyes. Of the red glow of scopes in the snow. Of the laughter in the trees. Of humans that had stopped being prey and became something worse. Hunters with no end. Earth had once been labeled a failed world. Forgotten. Unimportant. But the Dominion learned the truth too late. Earth had simply gone quiet so the monsters they left behind could get better at listening. And now, they were wide awake.